Hi, and welcome to episode 12, the last official episode of Branwen's Big Year. It's Sunday, the 22nd of December, and I'm currently in Broadford on the Isle of Skye, which is an area that we've visited a few times over the last couple of years and had some amazing birding experiences. We thought it would be a great place to finish off the week and also get to spend Christmas in the Highlands on an island, which is just so exciting. Unfortunately, the weather outside is pretty grim. It's yellow warning of wind, which is very accurate. There's gales, very strong gusts of wind, and lots and lots of rain. It doesn't look great this week, to be honest. The Met Office are predicting a lot of rain. So we might have some of our efforts curtailed, but we'll do our best. We're on the hunt for white-tailed eagles, which is a speciality of Skye. Also twite and Brent goose we've seen in this area. Broadford Bay is amazing for water birds and seabirds. And there's a great beach just around the coast called Ashegg, which we visited last time quite a few times. The Slate Peninsula is only just down the road, which has got some woodland areas, unusual for the Isle of Skye. So yeah, we're going to see if we can at least have some birding adventures, despite nature throwing everything it's got at us. So stick with us and let's see what we can find on Skye. It's Monday, the 23rd of December, nearly Christmas, and I'm standing on a very windy, slightly damp Ashegg beach, which is just in the southeast corner of Skye. It's a gorgeous spot, even with the dramatic weather, perhaps especially because of the dramatic weather. There's a few of the typical birds you'd see around here, a few waders like oyster catchers, which you can often find on shorelines like this. There was a redshank flying around a little while ago, a curlew which called across the water and then flew over, quite a few gulls, mostly herring I think, but there was a great blackback among them, looking out hard for a white-tailed eagle but no sign yet. It's possibly a bit murky to be able to see them. I was also looking for twite here because we saw some last year in a flock of sort of goldfinches and linnets and twite, but none today sadly. Maybe the food source that's usually here in November, which is when we were here before, might have been used up by now. So, but we'll probably return here, hopefully on a day when it's not quite so murky, and yeah, hopefully find some of those much needed ticks. It's Tuesday, December the 24th. It's Christmas Eve, yay! And I'm here with Daddy-O.
Hello, all right.
And we're on the bank of Loch Aynort, which is just a little way around the coast from Broadford where we're staying. And it's very windy and very wet still, although we have got a bit of blue sky. And the weather forecast said we've got this for about an hour. So we've just come out. We're going to sit in some lay-bys right next to the loch and look out. There have been sightings of, I think, black-necked grebe, long-tailed duck, and one of the divers, but I can't remember which. But that was quite a few days ago, so it's possibly unlikely that we'll see any. But we're just going to keep an eye out on the loch and see if there's anything interesting. It's Thursday, the 26th of December, and the rain has finally eased, as has the wind. It's quite a still day, still very overcast, and there is a chance of drizzle and rain wherever we go. But we're going to make the best of it. This is the first and pretty much only day, I think, of our trip to Skye where we can actually get out properly. So we're going to drive around the Slate Peninsula on a kind of road loop that we call the Ord Loop because it goes through the village of Ord. There's possibilities for some water birds along the way, possibly eagles. We've never seen one over there, but it's the right kind of habitat. So we'll see. Keep your fingers crossed. What a difference. Today, weather-wise, could not be more different from the last few days. It's beautifully still and dry. There's, misty cloud around, but generally speaking, we're in another world. We're about halfway around what I call the Ord Loop at a village called Tulkaveg. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that even remotely closely. Behind me, you can see Dunscaith Castle. Just there. We've just seen a diver in this bay, not entirely sure which. I've got to check when we get home with some photos and bird book. We've seen quite a few this morning in different places, which is brilliant, something that we've been waiting for. There's also a couple of goosander out just behind me as well, which are looking gorgeous in this kind of wintry light. Seen quite a few other birds, some waders and gulls on the different little beaches around this side. This is sort of like the southwest corner of Skye, so it's looking out away from the mainland, which always feels quite magical, I think. We're just going to continue driving around to Ord and see if there's anything else there before we head back home for lunch. We might even be able to get out again this afternoon if this weather holds. Well, it's Tuesday, December the 31st, the last day of the big year. And I've just arrived at Aberporth in West Ceredigion, where we've been a couple of times this year. I'm hoping to see some common scoters here because this is a good spot to see them. We've spotted them a few times in the winter. So fingers crossed, it's a very blustery day, which might make filming challenging, but we'll do our best. But what a year it's been. Thank you so much for coming along with me on the journey. Thank you especially to Mum and Dad for accompanying me so much of the time and sharing my really specific holiday requirements. Thanks to everybody else who's come along the way, Mary and Uncle Dave and Auntie Sarah and RJ and everybody else. It's been lovely birding with you all. I sadly haven't come close really to my personal target of 200. We did well, but there were quite a few points along the way where I think I missed a few opportunities, where I heard of interesting birds popping up in the sort of vaguely near vicinity. But it's made me reflect on the type of birder I am. There's a term out there called twitcher, which suggests birdwatchers who are often chasing specific bird species and will travel long distances and sacrifice other parts of their life to do so. I'm definitely not a twitcher. I'm more of a casual birder. I just love watching birds, whatever species, whether they're common, rare or whatever. And I hope that's come across a bit in this vlog over the year. My main aim for doing this really was just to sort of put myself out in nature as much as possible. It does wonders for my mental health. It's kind of one of my favourite safe spaces and solaces in these increasingly difficult times. One of the things that makes these times difficult, I think, is the climate situation. I'm not going to get into that too deeply, but I do find that birds are an interesting and slightly scary barometer of what's happening with the climate. There's a really great specific example of that. When I was a kid in the late 70s and early 80s, when I started birding, the species little egret was just starting to appear on the south coast of England, and it was a real magical thing to go and see a little egret, a bird that would otherwise you'd have to travel to Europe to see. Now, only 40 something years on, little egrets are really common across the whole of the UK. And now we're getting great egrets up here. And in the last few years, cattle egrets are becoming more and more common. And I can only imagine that's to do with, partly habitat loss possibly, and them having to work harder to find places to breed, but also the change in climate, and that they're now finding it more hospitable on the UK shores to breed and nest. So yeah, it's a bit scary how quickly all of that is changing. Bird habits are changing radically. I'm noticing it more and more, that you're seeing species in different places where you wouldn't expect to see them. Yeah, it's a bit of a concern. And I guess that's another part of my wanting to do this big year, in terms of vlogging it especially, is just raising awareness of wildlife and how important it is to us and to our world and to how we survive. So, hopefully I've reached a few people and maybe, encouraged a few people to get interested in birds. If you're ever up for birding and you're in my neighbourhood, always, get in contact. I would love to come out and, share some times in nature with you. I'm sure this isn't the end. I'm obviously going to continue vlogging. I'm sure also that I will do another big year. I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks again for all your support on YouTube. Thank you to all my new followers and people who comment on my videos. I really love hearing from you, and thanks for picking up some of my misidentifications along the way. I look forward to watching your experiences if you're a vlogger as well, and just keeping that communication going. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to my YouTube channel, for following me on future adventures, and keep getting out there, keep enjoying the birds and enjoying nature. I'll see you in 2025.